about about writing and publishing. So this week's live, our topic is going to be how you can use your expertise and turn that into a book. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining. So today's topic is one I get asked a lot from my clients, and I actually just published a really great podcasting episode on publishing for professionals. So if you don't subscribe to the podcast, definitely do that. It's a free podcast, all access, and I do a lot of educational pieces on writing and publishing, and then I also have a few guest experts on, like my next guest expert or my last one was Alex Trumbull. And he came on and talked about how to use your book for professional networking. And that is an absolutely spectacular episode. I also just had a recent episode with Janet Ungeen Simpson. And she came on for a book blueprint episode. And how that works is the book blueprint episode, I have people come on my show and we do a coaching session on the episode, and people ask me questions, kind of like to ask me anything, but it's live and it's a podcast, or it's pre-recorded and it's a podcast episode. And then I answered her questions. So we went really in depth actually in this topic in her interview. So check that out on Publishing for Professionals. It was my next to last episode that just came out recently. And that really delves into the how to get your book started when you're a professional and what to focus on. But we'll talk a little bit about it here. And then if you have any questions, please put them in the chat because I can definitely answer them for you on today's Ask Me Anything. So today we're going to talk about how to use your expertise to transform it into a book. So the first thing you always want to do with your book is to figure out what's the focus of your book, right? Are you writing a memoir for your kids? So we're actually just going to focus on just the professional aspect of this. So if you are a professional and you're in like tech or you're in finance, and if you're going to FinCon, definitely hit me up because I will be there on September 11th. I would love to meet up with you. So anyway, going to FinCon. So we'll use the financial space as a really great example. The financial space is really saturated, especially with coaches and consultants and people trying to help other people, whether that's a B2B or a B2C, with their money and managing it properly to make the most out of their money. And also investing it so they can make the most out of their investments and things like that. So because that space is really crowded and very saturated, that's an actual space that it is extremely important to have a book. And the reason why is having a book really makes you stand out, because 80% of people who say, I have an idea in my head for a book, never write their book. And when they do write their book, most of those people actually never end up publishing it. So out of everybody who thinks of an idea for a book, literally 90 to 95% of people never publish that book because they don't take action. And that's the thing you need to do, is take action. However, a lot of people just get stuck right in the beginning. Like, what do I do? Like, what do I talk about in my book? I know I want to write a book. I have an idea, but I don't know how to filter and formulate that into a table of contents that makes sense so that my book content comes in order. And then when people read it, it's nice and fluid and it's interesting and it has good hooks in it. So I'm going to give you a little basic tutorial today on how you can take your expertise idea and turn it into a book. So let's talk about finance, specifically real estate investment, because that's a really hot topic right now in the finance space. So if you are a real estate investor and you are either trying to get other people to come in and invest with you, so like other angel investors or other investors in general, or you are an investor and you have a program that teaches other people how to invest in real estate to make money, right? Either one of those, there's a lot of people out there that's doing that. And the best way to distinguish yourself is writing a book. So let's take the coaching part. So if you are a coach and you have successfully invested in real estate and you now have a community of people who want to learn how to do that, how can you take a book and take that idea and make it into a book and promote it and put it out there so people see you as the expert as opposed to someone else who doesn't have a book that's out there? So recently I had a client, her name is Andrea Engstrom. I helped her with some editing on her book. Her book was right in this vertical. And so one of the things you can do is so if you are a real estate investor, so you might be a multifamily investor, you might do commercial, you might do residential and flip houses, whatever it is. So you're going to take that topic. So we'll say uh, multifamily investing. So you buy apartment complexes and then you make them more efficient to make more money or fix them up and charge higher rent, whatever it is. So if you're a real estate investor, you're in the financial space, you're doing multifamily investing, what topics can you talk about in your multifamily investing book that would give your clients a really great edge on learning about you and learning about more about what you do, and also learning about how they can do some multifamily investing as well. There was a yellow jacket following me just a second ago. Sorry about that. Anyway, so multifamily investing. Hey, what is your angle on multifamily investing? Right? What is makes you different from everybody else in your program? Do you have a specific program that you do for multifamily investing, not just coaching, but a program you bring people through that's like a step-by-step program on like, okay, this is how you assess your apartment complex to see if this is a good candidate for you to invest in and flip or charge more rent for or fix up or whatever. Okay, then maybe the next step is after you after people assess that, and this is going to be the content for your book, what's your next step? So if you are going to like remodel it, what should you remodel? What should you not invest the money into? Okay, so now that you've remodeled it, how do you go about notifying your tenants that you're going to change the rent or make it like, make the rent a little bit higher? How do you do that? Are you going to do that in increments or you do that all at once? Are you prepared for the turnover that's going to happen? Because inevitably, when you raise rent, not everybody's going to stay. So think about the process. What is the process people are going to go through if they're in your program and you're writing a book about it? So just write that out step by step. Okay. And so that's going to be your basis for your table of contents. Now, once you write that out, you want to give that structure to some people who are colleagues, not your friends or family. They never give you the best advice on what you're writing about, but your friends and family who are colleagues, they're going to look at your outline, basically your step-by-step process, which is your outline, which is going to be the basis for your table of contents. And then they're going to tell you, okay, this doesn't make sense. I don't know what this means. Or maybe like this needs to be explained a little better. Or maybe you need to add some things or change some chapters around in order to make more sense. Okay, so get some feedback from people. Just tell them like this is a basic book outline that you're doing. Make sure that they sign a non-disclosure agreement, which means they're not going to talk about your book content to other people. That legally binds them to not do that, so that if they do, you can take legal action against them. I always tell everybody, whether it's a beta reader, any type of beta reader, which is a reader who's reading your book content, always get a non-disclosure agreement because that covers yourself legally. So once they go through that, then you can take that comment and that feedback. Obviously, you don't have to make all the changes they recommend, but if the change makes sense and it makes it a better book, and especially if multiple people are telling you the same thing, like, hey, reorganize these two chapters because it makes more sense if you flip them this way. Okay. If you see multiple people saying the same thing, you definitely want to make that change because that's a big flag that says, hey, a lot of readers are not going to understand this. And if these people that are reading it don't understand it, then your avatar is most likely not going to understand that. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Okay. So if you're in the space and you know you're writing for a knowledgeable group, and then there's some people who are not knowledgeable who are reading this, then that might be an exception. But if the people who are reading your book or reading your outline are the people who are going to be reading your book, and that's an important aspect, then you definitely want to make sure that that change is made because they're your readers are not going to understand it and they're going to put down your book and or even worse, give you a not great review online. So make sure you do that. And then once your beta readers have read through your outline, and then you can like tweak it, you can maybe add some more chapters. Sometimes people realize like they'll start writing a chapter and it's really way too long. So then they break it down into a couple different chapters to make the chapters a little bit shorter and easier to read. And if you have any questions, please put them in the message box in the comments below. I would love to answer any questions you have. It does not have to be on this topic. Always the topic I do get the most questions about. All right, so you're starting your outline, you're tweaked it, you've got some beta readers. And then like look over your outline and see like, does it really appeal to you? Like, is this an outline that you're really into that you really want to write? Because if you're writing it as if you're positioning it as your expert, you're an expert in your field, you want to make sure that it's very clear and concise and it's going to appeal to your avatar. So when you're at a conference and you're networking, or you're at, a business networking event or wherever you're at, and you have copies of your book that you want to give to people, make sure that you know what they're looking for and that you give them your book and not just hand it out to everybody, but you're talking to somebody and they say, yeah, I want to get into multifamily investing, but I don't know where to start. And you say, would you like a copy of my book? I have one with me. And you take it out of your bag and they say yes. And you sign it with their name. And then you say, I would definitely and get a bookmark. If you have your own bookmarks, that's great. I would say, based on what you're telling me, read chapter 2. This is going to be the chapter for you that is going to really make a difference. You're going to learn a lot from it based on our brief conversation today. Bookmark chapter 2 and give it to them. And that is a really great way, A, to network, B, to show your expertise, and C, to help like actually get like it's basically like kind of a discovery call because you're asking the person what their pain points are. You're giving them a solution right with your book that's bookmarked. So it's super highly effective and very targeted. And that's what you want to do when you network with your book, as Alex says in his episode when we talked about is upcoming, when we talked about how to use your book as a networking piece. So you really want to be very precise and direct with your networking. And you want to make sure that when you're using your book for your networking, you give people a specific chapter to look at based on what you're talking about. So that's kind of the general way that you can use your expertise to A, turn it into a book, and B, use it while you're networking. I would definitely recommend subscribing to my podcast, Publishing for Professionals, because Janet Simpson comes in as already published. We already published her episode, and she talks about a lot of the how to organize my book questions. And then Alex Tremble's coming up, and he's got a fantastic episode for us on how to network professionally using your book. And of course, it's effectively and professionally, not just handing it out to everybody. One of the mistakes you don't want to make, I will give you an example of that I have seen on more than one occasion, but the most recent occasion was at Podfest this past January. If you don't know what Podfest is, it's a very big international podcasting conference that's held in Orlando every year. And so I've been going for 8 years now. I love this podcast conference. It's really fun and great. And a lot of my friends go every year. So this past January when I went, I was sitting next to the coffee shop. We're sitting at the coffee shop with a friend, and I was chatting with them, and we're just having a nice, relaxing conversation. And it was the next to last day. So then it was Saturday, and Sunday was the last day. And we're sitting there chatting, and a guy comes along, and I recognize him because I saw him speaking at one of the workshops. And he comes along with his book, and he says, "Hey, I want to give you ladies a copy of my book. I have too many copies and I don't want to bring them home on the airplane, so I'm just handing them out to free for people." And he's just like, hand out. And he just kept going, walking along, handing his book out to any random person, not knowing if A, they even needed his book, or B, would they be interested in his book, and C, that completely devalued his book, right? Because he's like, I just don't want to take these home. I'm going to hand them out. He would have been much better off taking them home with him, or even better, if he saw people from his workshop and said, "Hey, I saw you at my workshop. Can I answer any questions for you on what I talked about on blah, 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 whatever it was his topic was?" And they would have said, "Yes, I really have a question about this." And then he could open his book, find that chapter, put his bookmark in it, and say, "Awesome. I'm going to sign my book and give you a copy. Here is chapter 4, answers your questions. Definitely take a read on this on the plane home. And please give me a call if you have any questions. My number's on my bookmark," right? That would have been a much more effective way if he didn't want to take his books home. But when you just hand them out randomly like that, that really does devalue your work, and it doesn't gain you any respect. And it can even sometimes hurt your reputation as a professional, and it definitely hurts your reputation as a thought leader because you're just randomly giving out your work to people. And that's not a good way to network at all. It's not effective, and it doesn't help enhance your reputation or your presence or your expertise as a thought leader. All right, so I hope this has been really helpful. If you have any other questions, definitely drop them in this comment in the chat below. or you can also drop them in the general Substack chat. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. I really appreciate it. Again, I hope you have a wonderful Labor Day. I hope you're having a great time. I'm going to be barbecuing some steak today, which I'm really excited about. We have a really great local farmers market here that we always get steak from that's free range, and it's really, really fabulous. So we're doing steak and potatoes today for Labor Day. And I know we're eating something else, mushrooms and onions. So wall wall onions are the best. If you're ever in the Pacific Northwest, grab yourself a wall wall onion if you like onions, and then like cook it up with a steak. If you eat steak, it's absolutely fabulous. All right. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all next week. Remember, I have my lives every week at 9:05 Pacific, 11:05 Eastern. No, 12:05 Eastern. Time zones. My brain is not awake yet. So I hope to see you again next week on another Ask Me Anything Live. If you have any questions ahead of time, please put them in the Substack comments, or you can also go on to Publishing for Professionals on my website and leave a comment there on my contact. So I hope you're having a wonderful day, friends and future authors, and I'll see you next week for another Ask Me Anything Live. Bye.